I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high over vales and hills, when all at once I saw a crowd, a host of golden daffodils, beside the lake beneath the trees, fluttering and dancing in the breeze. Continuous as the stars that shine and twinkle on the Milky Way, they stretched in never-ending line along the margin of a bay. 10,000 saw I at a glance, tossing their heads in sprightly dance. The waves beside them danced, but they outdid the sparkling waves in glee. A poet could not but be gay in such a jocund company. I gazed and gazed, but little thought what wealth the show to me had brought. For oft, when on my couch I lie, in vacant or in pensive mood, they flash upon that inward eye, which is the bliss of solitude, and then my heart with pleasure fills, and dances with the daffodils. Daffodils is a lyric poem written by William Wordsworth. It is his best known work. The poem was inspired by an event on 15th April 1802 in which the poet and his sister Dorothy came across a long belt of daffodils. The poem was originally published in 1807 under the title I Wandered Lonely as a Cloud in Poems in 2 volumes. This title suggested something about the poet's loneliness, and so it was later changed to Daffodils. Actually, the poem is all about the beauty of the daffodils and how they brought happiness to the poet. William Wordsworth revised the poem in 1815. He replaced the word dancing with golden, a host of golden daffodils. He replaced the word along with beside the lake, beneath the trees. The poet changed the word laughing to jocund, in such a jocund company. He added a stanza between the first and the second. So now the poem has 4 stanzas. The rhyme scheme for each stanza is AB, AB, CC. Friends, now I'll be explaining to you the meaning and summary of the entire poem, Daffodils. Of course, I'm Rashmi from an English Nut. Let's get started. Daffodils are yellow-colored, bright and fragrant flowers that bloom in the spring. I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high over vales and hills. The poet William Wordsworth says that he was roaming around without any purpose. He was all alone, roaming like a cloud that floats in the valley. Usually the clouds are not alone, but here the poet probably refers to a fragment of the cloud that floats along the hills in the valley. When all at once I saw a crowd, a host of golden daffodils. While roaming around in the valley, the poet suddenly sees a crowd, a host of daffodils, a large number of daffodils. The words crowd and host mean a large number of people. Hence, the poet uses personification and attributes human qualities to daffodils. The poet uses the word golden rather than yellow for the daffodils in order to express their beauty and magnificence. Beside the lake, beneath the trees, fluttering and dancing in the breeze. According to the poet, he sees a large number of daffodils beside the lake, beneath the trees, that is, along the shores of the lake and below the trees, because they are small. The daffodils seem to be fluttering and dancing in the breeze, swaying in the breeze. Again, the poet personifies the daffodils by showing them as fluttering like birds flap their wings and dancing like humans dance. Continues as the stars that shine and twinkle on the Milky Way. According to the poet, the daffodils which covered the shore of the lake seemed to be never ending like the stars in the sky. And like the stars of the Milky Way, the daffodils were too twinkling. They stretched in never-ending line along the margin of a bay. The poet says that the daffodils stretched in never-ending line. It means the daffodils were large in number along the margin of a bay. The bay here refers to the lake. 10,000 saw I at a glance, tossing their heads in sprightly dance. It means the poet saw a large number of daffodils which he couldn't count. The daffodils were tossing their heads in sprightly dance. The head refers to the top flower part of the plant. Sprightly dance means the lively and jubilant dance. The daffodils were moving their heads in a rhythm which seemed to the poet as the daffodils were dancing. The waves beside them danced, but they outdid the sparkling waves in glee. It means that beside the daffodils there were waves in the lake which seemed to be dancing, but the jubilant dancing of the daffodils was far better than the dancing of the lively waves. A poet could not but be gay in such a jocund company. For a poet like William Wordsworth, the jocund company, the joyful company of the daffodils, was the ultimate source of pleasure and happiness, and he couldn't help being happy. I gazed and gazed, but little thought what wealth the show to me had brought. The poet gazed. He kept looking at the daffodils and their beautiful dance for a long time. The word gazed is used twice to indicate how charmed the poet was. So the poet gazed at the daffodils for a long time, forgetting his surroundings. At that time, he did not think much about the wealth. The wealth here means the happiness and the pleasant memory that the poet enjoyed. At that time, the poet did not think much about the wealth the flowers had brought to him. Maybe the poet realized it later. For oft, when on my couch I lie, in vacant or in pensive mood, the poet starts this stanza with for. He continues his reasoning for saying that the daffodils had brought him wealth, that is, happiness. Here the poet says why the sight of daffodils was so important in his life. They flash upon that inward eye, which is the bliss of solitude. Whenever the poet lies on his bed in a vacant or thoughtful mood, the daffodils flash upon his inward eye, that is, his imagination. The daffodils have become an everlasting memory for the poet whenever the poet is in a sad mood, and that's why the poet calls it a bliss of solitude, that is, a blessing of staying alone. And then my heart with pleasure fills and dances with the daffodils. And whenever the poet sees the daffodils in his imagination, his heart fills with pleasure and dances with the dancing daffodils. Friends, here's the summary of the poem Daffodils, written by William Wordsworth. The poet says that once wandering alone, he encountered a field of daffodils. These daffodils were beside a lake, and the jubilant dancing of the daffodils outdid the dancing of the waves in the lake. The poet could not help but be happy in such a joyful company of flowers. The poet says that he gazed and gazed, but at that time did not realize what happiness the scene could bring him. For now, whenever he feels vacant or pensive, the memory of the dancing daffodils flashes in his imagination, and his heart fills with pleasure and dances with the dancing daffodils. Friends, that's it for today. Do like, share, comment and subscribe. See you soon. Have a nice day.